Coming in at number 7 on the Locked On Senators 2023 NHL Draft rankings, it's an absolute dog. It's Ryan Leonard out of the U.S. national team program. We just covered his centerman, Will Smith, on yesterday's show. And today, it's Ryan Leonard, a right winger that is going to bring it physically. He's going to bring it with playmaking skill. He's got a great shot. This guy is probably the closest that we get, kind of like Cutter Gauthier last year,
Yes.
where he kind of brings those same elements and is just going to be the perfect complementary player in a top 6, top 9 role.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cutter Gauthier is definitely a good comparable, and he's on that top line of the USA team, and he is thriving. I mean, you start looking at the points, Ross, like 57 games, 51 goals, 43 assists, good for 94 points, and just like his buddies on that top line, Ross, we're going to see him at Boston College next season.
Wow. That's so cool that all 3 of them are going there, with Gabe Perreault being the 3rd. All 3 of them are going to play college together. And guess who else is there?
Cutter Gauthier.
Cutter Gauthier. That's awesome.
Crazy.
Elite prospects and Chris Peters are the highest on Ryan Leonard. They have him at 6. Bob McKenzie has him at 7. Rachel Dory has him at 10. Wheeler and Prodman, so we'll just say The Athletic, has him at 11. And Craig Button has him at 12th on his list. He's 6 feet tall. He's 192 pounds. Right shot, right wing. Love this player. Love everything I'm reading about this player. Just feels like the kind of guy who you want to exude some patience with, because you don't want to put him into a role where he ends up being like a 3rd, 4th line guy, bottom 6 for lack of a better term, where he's just going around and shaking the glass every shift with monster hits. But I think what you need to understand with Ryan Leonard is that this is not, and I mean, just look at the stats there with the US program. This is not just a guy who has physical tools. This guy has elite skill as well.
Well, he wouldn't be hanging up on that top line if he didn't have the skills, right? Because those guys you mentioned, Will Smith and Gabe Perreault, I mean, those are highly talented guys, and it's a privilege to play on that top line in the U.S. program. So it's not like he's just there because they like him. Like, he obviously has the skill set to be there, and he's just one of those all-around good prospects. Like, he's got the lethal shot. He can make good passes. He's a solid skater, and he plays with a lot of drive. Like, this guy has a high motor, and he makes sure that every shift he's bringing it, and he's helping set up those high-end guys like his line mates.
He's also one of the most improved players, I think, if you ask the coaching staff at the U.S. program, where last year, his first year, you guys are there for 2 years. Like, yeah, the points were all right against his own age group. Excuse me. He was at 20 points in 26 games. And then he broke out at the under 18s as an underager for that program, right? He was in the same tournament this year, wore an A this year. We'll get to his stats this year, but had 5 goals in 6 games. And Scott Wheeler had this in his preseason rankings. He said, I won't be surprised if he challenges Will Smith and Moore, Oliver Moore. No, Oliver Moore. The other, we'll get to Oliver Moore. Don't worry about that. But he would challenge him on the stat sheet this year while providing all the energy that he does as well. Well, Wheeler was a check mark on that one. This guy is just been a breakout star, and that continued at this year's under 18. Pilsy, we talked about 20 points being good in 7 games. How about 17 points for our guy Ryan Leonard here at the tournament? Like, and what I like about him too, yeah, he's physical, not a whole lot of penalties. Right? Like, yeah, 46 PIMs in 57 games. Like, he plus 77. Is that good? But you look at it, and at the under 18, sometimes like these rough and tumble type players, they'll get to those tournaments and maybe not know where the line is in the IHF, and only 2 minor penalties in the 7 games. So I look at him as the kind of guy where, yeah, the upside is crazy high, but you also are guaranteeing yourself, like much like Dvorsky, but in a different way. This guy's a safe pick. He's going to be in the NHL for a long time. And the question I ask here on the side, more skill or grit? What do you think defines Ryan Leonard?
I would say grit. And the reason I think those penalty minutes are so low when you think of a guy of his skill set is he's not the guy, from my understanding, that's out there making big hits. Like, he's not a imposing player. He just doesn't give up. Like we have. He's an absolute dog. Like, he's just in there working hard. He's not trying to be the most physical player. He's trying to be the hardest working player. And there is a difference between that. And I think he toes that line really well. And the thing is, there's not a lot of creative dangles or stick work, much like we saw with some of the guys like Michkov or even Will Smith. Like, that's not his game. He's going to play a meat and potatoes type of game where I'm just going to go north, south. I'm going to work hard and I'm going to get pucks on net. And there's nothing wrong with that if you have the right supporting players around you. So I think an NHL team is going to be very happy with Ryan Leonard. Like, this is a guy, Ross, I see when, in the regular season, he's going to put up nice numbers. But in the playoffs, that's when a general manager is going to be like, I'm glad we have this guy.
I was literally about to say the type of player you win with when he's in your top 9. Like, he's versatile. He can play anywhere. I don't think he's too, egotistical for a third line role, right? He could be that guy who in a pinch can go up and play in your top 6. But I think there's some bigger swings for upside a little bit later on in our rankings. Yep. But there's no one who's going to bring you the consistent effort, energy with the sprinkle of skill, the seasoning of skill in there, as well as Ryan Leonard. So the scouts completely agree with us, Pillsy, because this scouting report just kind of encapsulates what he is as a player, the EP Draft Guide Elite Prospects. Leonard brings it every shift, no matter the score, no matter the stakes. It's always overtime of Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Final when Leonard steps onto the ice. If you're not up for the fight, that's your problem.
Yeah, I think that perfectly ties in what Leonard's all about. I love it. And Wheeler, he goes on to say, Leonard's the kind of player who will score, add physicality to a line, and slide up and down a top 9 in an NHL lineup while endearing himself to the coaches. Yeah, bang on.
Bang on. And where do you want to see him? Because for me, and I know we just said this with Dvorsky, but doesn't this guy just scream Philadelphia Flyers, much like Cutter Gauthier last year?
Yeah, I'll hop on that take with you as well, Ross. I think either they're going Dvorsky or Leonard here. I would even put Leonard as more of the favor here because he's going to have that chemistry with Cutter Gauthier. So that would be a great pick for the Flyers.
But the other part of this, I think, is worth noting is that Arizona went so heavy on centers last year with 2 picks in the top 11 at center. Logan Cooley at 2 and Connor Geekie at 11. Now, could Arizona reunite a couple former teammates as well? Maybe the next guy on our ranking could be going to Arizona to join Connor Geekie again, where he played in the WHL. Not so much on the same line, but they've obviously had some success there together. But Ryan Leonard is the type of player where I think he's probably 2 years away from being an NHLer, maybe 3 until he's really like establishing. Because these guys who are playing hard and playing physical, they're the ones who you don't want to throw them to the wolves too early, right? Against the best in the world.
Well, and you want to make sure he has the right line mates. Like, I'm not saying that he can't succeed without the right line mates, but you're doing him a disservice if you put him with guys that don't match well with him. So I think be patient with Ryan Leonard because I don't think he's going to explode onto the scene. I think he's going to get onto the scene and he's going to figure out how to maintain that style of game in the pros.
And we're going to find out sooner than later. The NHL Draft is coming up June 28th. Ryan Leonard will hear his name for lots more draft content. Head over to Locked On Senators on YouTube.